The rain had just stopped when my journey began. The sky above the city was painted with soft grey clouds while the streets still shimmered with water. People rushed through the crowded bus station, carrying bags, umbrellas, and tired expressions. Loud announcements echoed through the air, mixing with the sound of engines and distant conversations. I stood near platform 7 with a small backpack hanging from my shoulder. My name is Arham, and at that time, I believed life had already become empty for me. A year earlier, my father had passed away after a long illness. Since then, nothing felt the same. My home became silent. My dreams faded, and even my smile disappeared slowly. I had stopped talking to friends and spent most of my days working in my uncle's shop just to survive. That morning, I decided to leave the city for a few days and visit the northern mountains. I thought maybe distance could heal the heaviness inside my heart. I did not know that one journey would change my entire life forever. The bus arrived with a loud screech. Passengers hurried inside, fighting for seats near the windows. I entered quietly and found my seat near the back. As I placed my bag beside me, someone suddenly spoke. "Excuse me, is this seat empty?" I looked up. A girl stood there holding a small blue suitcase. She wore a white sweater and carried a camera around her neck. Aquahond and Astegu Andersen. Few strands of hair moved gently across her face as cold wind entered through the bus door. For a moment I forgot how to speak. "Yes," I replied softly. "You can sit here." She smiled, and strangely that smile felt warmer than sunlight after a storm. "Thank you," she said while sitting beside me. The bus slowly began moving through the busy streets. Outside, the city lights reflected on wet roads like broken stars. For some time, silence remained between us. Then she looked toward me and asked, "Are you traveling alone?" "Yes." "Same here," she said cheerfully. "I love traveling alone. It feels like the world becomes your friend." I gave a small smile. She noticed immediately. "You don't smile much, do you?" Her question surprised me. I answered quietly. She stared at me for a second, but did not ask further. Instead, she extended her hand toward me. "Im Ayesha, Arham." "Nice to meet you, Arham." Something about her voice felt peaceful. Hours passed as the bus crossed highways, villages, and rivers. Slowly our conversation became easier. She talked about photography, mountains, books, and dreams she wanted to fulfill before turning 25. She laughed often, very often, and every time she laughed, it felt as if she carried light inside her soul. At night, the bus stopped near a roadside restaurant surrounded by hills. Passengers stepped outside to eat dinner and stretch their legs. Cold air wrapped around the area, while tiny drops of rain still fell from the trees. I sat quietly at a corner table drinking tea. Aisha suddenly appeared in front of me holding 2 small cupcakes. "One for you," she said. I looked confused. "What's the occasion?" Her eyes sparkled. "It's my birthday?" For a second I did not know what to say. "Happy birthday," I said sincerely. "Thank you," she replied with a bright smile. "You're the first stranger to wish me today." She placed a candle on one cupcake and lit it carefully. The tiny flame danced in the cold wind. "Aren't you going to make a wish?" I asked. She looked at the candle silently before answering. "I already did." "What was it?" "That's a secret." Then she closed her eyes and blew out the candle. I still remember that moment clearly. The soft rain, the cold night, the candlelight fading between us, and her smile. After dinner, we returned to the bus. Most passengers quickly fell asleep, but Aisha stayed awake looking outside the window. "Do you believe some people meet for a reason?" she asked suddenly. "I don't know," I replied. "I do," she whispered. "Sometimes destiny puts 2 strangers together because one of them needs saving." Her words stayed inside my mind for a long time. The next morning we reached the mountains. Tall pine trees covered the hills, while clouds floated low across the valleys. The air smelled fresh and pure. Aisha became excited like a child. She kept taking photographs of rivers, flowers, and sunrise, reflections on the snow-covered peaks. "Come here," she shouted while standing near a cliff. I walked toward her carefully. "Look at this view," she said softly. The mountains stretched endlessly before us under golden sunlight. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "It's not even your birthday." Meeting you felt like a new life for me. For a moment she became silent. Then she stepped closer. So maybe destiny really did introduce us for a reason. Before I could answer, she hugged me. And in that quiet sunset, I realized my lonely heart belonged to her completely. But happiness never stays forever. 2 days later, while we were walking through the market, Aisha suddenly collapsed. Everything happened so fast. People gathered around us while I held her trembling hands. Her breathing became weak. Aisha, I shouted desperately. She opened her eyes slightly and whispered, "Im okay?" But she wasn't. We rushed her to a nearby hospital. Doctors quickly took her inside while I waited outside feeling helpless. Hours passed like years. Finally, a doctor came toward me. "She needs immediate surgery," he said seriously, "but even then chances are uncertain." My world shattered. I sat alone outside the hospital all night praying for someone who would become my entire life within days. The next morning, a nurse handed me a small letter. "She wanted you to have this," the nurse said quietly. My hands shook while opening it. Inside, her handwriting appeared soft and beautiful. "Dear Arham, if you are reading this, then maybe destiny is testing us again. I want you to know something important. Before meeting you, I had accepted death. I was tired, afraid, and lonely. But during this journey, you gave me something I thought I had lost forever. Life. You listened to me, cared for me, and made me feel seen. Promise me one thing. If I survive, we will travel together again. And if I don't, then keep living for both of us. Smile again. Love again. Dream again. Because somewhere in this world there should always be a part of me alive inside your happiness. And thank you for making my final birthday the most beautiful day of my life. Ayesha." By the time I finished reading, tears blurred every word. Hours later, the surgery began. I waited outside endlessly. Every second felt unbearable. Finally, the operation room doors opened. The doctor walked out slowly. His silence told me everything before words did. "I'm sorry," he whispered. At that moment, my entire world went dark. The girl I met during one random journey, the girl whose birthday changed my life, the girl who brought my dead heart back to life, was gone forever. Days later, I returned to the same bus station where our story had begun. Everything looked the same. Crowded streets, busy people, rain falling softly from the sky. But I was no longer the same person. I carried pain inside me, but I also carried her memories. Sometimes I still hear her laughter in cold winds. Sometimes sunsets remind me of her smile. And every year on her birthday, I travel somewhere new and light, a small candle beside me. Because Aisha once feared being forgotten, but she never will be. Not while my heart still beats. Not while her love still lives inside my soul. Some people enter your life for a short time, yet leave behind memories powerful enough to last forever. She looked at me instead of the mountains. "Yes," she replied. "Life is beautiful too if you allow yourself to see it again." For the first time in many months, I felt something move inside my broken heart. Hope. Over the next few days, we explored the town together. We drank tea at small cafes, walked beside rivers, watched sunsets, and shared stories about our lives. I told her about my father, about the loneliness, about how life stopped feeling meaningful. She listened carefully without interrupting. Then she said something I could never forget. "Pain changes people, Arham, but it doesn't mean life ends there." One evening while snow began falling, softly we sat near a bonfire outside a wooden hotel. People around us sang songs and laughed together. Aisha stared into the fire quietly. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Of course." Her expression changed slightly. "I'm sick." The warmth around me suddenly disappeared. "What do you mean?" She forced a smile. "I have a heart condition. Doctors say I may not have much time left." I felt my chest tighten painfully. "No, you're joking." I wish I was. Silence surrounded us. Only the sound of burning wood remained. "But you look fine," I whispered. "That's the funny thing about life," she replied softly. "Sometimes the people smiling the most are fighting battles nobody sees." I could not speak. She looked toward the snowy mountains. "That's why I travel," she continued. "I want to collect beautiful memories before time leaves me behind." A tear escaped my eyes before I could stop it. She noticed immediately. "Hey," she said gently, "don't look so sad. You're supposed to smile today. How can you stay so calm? Because fear wastes the little time we have." That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about her words, about destiny, about how someone so full of life could be slowly dying. The next morning I found her sitting alone near the river. Snowflakes rested softly on her hair. "You should be inside," I said. She smiled faintly. "And miss this view." I sat beside her quietly. For a while neither of us spoke. Then I finally asked, "Are you afraid?" She looked at the flowing river. "Yes," she admitted softly. "Not of dying, but of being forgotten." Her answer broke something inside me. "You'll never be forgotten," I said immediately. She turned toward me slowly. At that moment her eyes filled with tears for the first time. "You promise?" "I promise." Days passed quickly. Too quickly. Every moment with her felt precious. She taught me how to enjoy small things again. The sound of rain, morning sunlight, laughter, music, hope. And slowly I fell in love with her, deeply, completely. But fear lived inside my heart because I knew time was against us. One evening we climbed a hill to watch the sunset. The sky turned orange and purple while cold wind moved around us. Aisha stood near the edge, smiling peacefully. "Do you know," she said softly, "this has been the happiest birthday of my life." I looked at her carefully. "Mine too," she laughed gently.